Hello, everyone. I am doing a little impromptu Suminagashi session out in the driveway today. It's a beautiful day with just a light breeze, so I thought it would be fun to try out just letting the wind do its thing. So, my materials are plain black Sumi ink to start out with, my little ramekin of dish soap with a couple drops of, water with a few drops of dish soap, and my big white tray, which is 16 by 24 inches from Restaurant Supply. And I'm just alternating rings, as you saw, of soap and ink, creating the rings. The papers I'm using in this session are fairly standard. I'm only using a few. Plain Blick drawing paper and a couple others. And this is, I believe, the drawing paper. These blue paper towels, shop towels, are a favorite of mine. You can use them over and over again. They're very absorbent. You can also rinse your papers in the water rather than blot them like I did with paper towel. You can just submerge them in the water and the excess ink will just rinse off. I, however, like to blot them. The papers dry faster that way. And I will dry them and reuse them over and over. It's another set of rings with just black ink and soap water. Just sort of warming up and getting back into the swing of Suminagashi again. It's been almost a year since we moved and I broke down my studio. So just kind of warming up and getting back into the swing of it. I've noticed that when I use these larger trays, the more the rings expand, you get some really interesting squiggles, or sometimes the ink will actually kind of break and fracture a little bit, getting some really interesting effects. Now, this was I'm not sure, I don't know where I got it. I think it was given to me, a rice paper of sorts, a washi. It's fairly heavy. And then just a strip of standard paper. Wow. You can see that it's more of a more of a natural color, and that the ink really stands out. Now here, obviously, I am using blue and the soap water. Some of these colors it's difficult to get them rich and intense. And that's something that I am going to work on in the future. And I know a lot of that has to do with the quality of the paper you're using. So in the future, I am going to experiment with more rice papers and the absorbent papers that really show off that color. However, you will see I do manage to get a decent pull. See, even though you couldn't see the ink in the tray as well, it's a pretty bright print. And I apologize for not getting these a little closer into the frame. It's kind of an awkward angle. Now I'm alternating colors, playing a little bit. And you'll notice that I haven't cleaned my water. I haven't changed it. I haven't, sometimes you can pull, as you'll see later, I clean it with some newsprint. I find it really interesting letting that excess ink push against the sides. You can see how the new pattern is pushing the remaining ink to the edge, and it can cause some really cool effects also. So here I decided to experiment a little bit with the straw, pushing the water away from the sides. If you don't lay your paper down smoothly, you can create little rifts or whiskers. It's a little, almost like a skip. Not a bad effect, but if you want a smooth print, be sure to lay your paper down smoothly and evenly as possible. More color. This color's vermilion. You can't see the white soap water rings very well. If you look really closely, you can see those rings. I'm not sure why the vermilion spreads so easily, but you can see the exterior around the edges of the tray, all that previous ink and water collecting there. Really can add. I think this is one of my favorite prints. Just adds some interesting effects. Now I'm just using soap water to kind of push things in a little bit. Since my paper doesn't reach the edges of the tray, I kind of wanted to catch those neat swirls. Yeah, this is, to me, one of the most interesting prints. It turned pretty drippy. There was a lot of excess ink for some reason, but it dries beautifully, and I'll show you more of that later. Very faint, the vermilion. Again, leaving the water grungy. You'll notice that I'm starting to have some slight issues with my black ink spreading. And I believe what I discovered is that the brush I'm using, that cheap bamboo brush, the ink starts absorbing up into the handle rather than down and out through the bristles. So I'm going to have to troubleshoot that and continue to explore and see if that is indeed the case. But something to keep in mind if you have that problem. Also, using fresh ink. Some of my ink was in storage for a really long time while we were moving, and I did notice a slight improvement using fresh ink. Here I am using Yasutomo sketch paper. Really beautiful sketch paper with a slight tooth on one side. It's got a nice texture. Absorbs very well. This stuff is great. Okay. Just kind of a roundup of the leftover ink with some soap water. I believe at this point I also forgot that I was still recording, so I didn't pause and show the dried papers in to the camera longer. I apologize for that, but I'll give you a little flip through at the end. All the different techniques you can do to manipulate the water all have slightly different effects. Like just waving your hand or with paper is different than blowing with a straw, and is different from pulling with a skewer or a paperclip. And here in a moment you'll see I got some bubbles, and pushing them out to the side. If you don't do that, you'll end up with a blank spot on the paper, so it shows up as this white hole. Nice absorption with that Yasutomo paper. And this is the only time I think I clean the water. Just this is newsprint. It's really absorbent and a great way to kind of skim any fuzz, hair, dust, and just kind of give it a fresh start. When working outside, it is wonderful to just let the wind push. You can see the breeze is stirring it a little bit. I've edited out the long pauses. Sometimes I would walk off and dry papers, flip them, and just let the breeze continue to move things. Soap in there. And for this session, since I was just warming up again and kind of practicing, I chose not to use full-size paper. You'll see me in other sessions. I have 4 different size trays, and often I will cut the paper to full size to get maximum maximum coverage. But sometimes I just like to let that extra ink build off to the side. There's some pretty cool squiggles going on in there. Another nice print. For some reason, that one really, when I blotted the excess ink, lost a lot of its saturation. I think the drawing paper has a slight difference on each side, or it may have been a piece of random paper that got mixed in with my drawing paper. I do have some odd papers that are a little bit smoother, and they inhibit the absorption of ink. There goes a leaf blower. It was a noisy day in the neighborhood. And then I believe that was the last bit. And I'm going to speed up the next section. I don't like to waste any ink, so I just get some scraps. This is glassine, and I doodle on them to create collage papers. I really enjoy using up my inks to just make marks and splatters and lines, and then I will collage with them. So the transparent papers are a lot of fun to use up this ink. I'm just going to use up the rest of my ink, wrapping it up. And then the next segment, I will flip through the papers and show you how they turned out when they're dry. Here's a really quick sort of flip through of some of the papers. They're not in any particular order. Boy, they're looking much bluer on camera than they are in person. This is very pink rather than orange, it's looking like, but that's got some really pretty lines in there. This is the Yasutomo sketch rice paper. It's got a nice tooth on one side and it's smooth on the other. Let me use this one. Now, I like these because I was thinking they might make nice pages where you could write in the center but still have a little decoration. This one I love. This is why I don't clean my water, because I did the orange, which you can barely see, and then it pushes and condenses the previous rings into beautiful patterns. Beautiful swirls. This is my Blick sketch or drawing paper. This was some other miscellaneous paper and it didn't adhere very well. Very nice quality rice paper, but kind of a disappointing print on that one. Medical exam paper, very transparent. And there we go. Pretty decent batch.